Welcome to the POMcast with Stephen Willis. Now we're going to do things a little different. We are going to provide an honest look at Ole Miss athletics for the fan, by the fan, and of the fan. That is what we do. Hell be to me. I'm just kidding. Tune in for some Ole Miss sports news. We're going to give it to you straight. Yeah, right now. The POMcast starts now. It happens now. Holy cow. Listen to me. It's starting. Well, it's going to start right about now. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the POMcast. I'm Stephen Willis right here at Positively Ole Miss. I am so glad you are joining us. Just a little heads up. The system CPU is up at 100% at the moment, so if there's a little bit of a delay today, I'm sorry. We are still trying to break the machine so we know what's going on, so you don't have to deal with anything come football season. But we are at max power, and I can't figure out why we are at max power. It might be the fact that we're recording for the POMcast today. We're going to give this a try and see what it looks like and what it does, but we are up at max power. Anyway, you can catch us at Twitter at The Rebel Walk or at The Stephen Willis. You can stream us there. You can stream us at Facebook at facebook.com/POMcast, YouTube at Positively Ole Miss. Hit the bell for notifications. You'll always know when we're streaming. You'll know when we're on the air. Even if for some reason something's going on, if you need to hear it, there's different locations, and you always know. We'll have a title. It's like, hey, we're streaming this subject matter. You can decide if you're interested in it. We're also on Twitch at Positively Ole Miss, all one word. Join that. System CPU at 98%. It's crazy. So like I said, we're just trying this out. We're trying to do the POMcast audio recording and simultaneously the video recording. Today is going to be kind of our final day in our spring prospectus. We're going to talk a little bit about the running back position, our quarterback position, defensive line. We're going to look at a 30,000 foot view of it, and we're going to talk a little bit about defensive backs because it's the last thing of our position group prospectus that we're doing that I had to delay because my vaccine happened Friday. So thanks for basically allowing me to do that. Also, if we're doing the podcast, we're going to upload it to the podcast. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and Pandora. We're also on minor podcatchers as well. You can catch us there. Now, if we're in a situation to where the recording of all this causes us to not be able to do it, we may have to find a different way to do the podcasts. We may record it to another platform, running wires through, but we're going to figure out how to do that. But in the meantime, you can catch us on all these platforms that we have given to you. Now, Jake Evans was supposed to be here today. Something came up and was unable to join us today. Maybe we can get him back at some point later, but he is not on the show today. So it's just going to be me. So I'm sorry about that. But let's talk about the cornerback, the defensive back room when it comes to this football team moving forward. And I make no bones about it. I'm a huge Tysheem Johnson guy. He has honey badger traits. I'm not calling him the honey badger. He has honey badger traits, which means if it's developed right, he could be quite special back there. He's a super athlete type guy. He was at the top of their board from the beginning. He's a really great player and somebody I expect to see on the field quite a bit. I don't really know where, but he has the makeup to play any of the back three. And that means star, strong safety, and free safety. Now, there's other players that fit in, and like defensively, we have a lot of mid-year enrollees. just a ton of mid-year enrollees. And they are in a position to where they can really push the people coming back. So it's not a situation where the defense is going to look exactly like it did last year, because they've been being pushed since early in January when they came back and started working out after the Outback Bowl. And that was after the performance in the Outback Bowl that was really quite good. So let's start defensively. Let's start with the cornerbacks, defensive backs, and that can be our prospectus for that. A.J. Finley has a massive spring ahead of him. For somebody really athletic, trying to take a hold of a starting spot at free safety, with the players coming in, he has a chance to gain a foothold on that position. Go into the fall. The whole purpose of the spring is to go into the fall at number one. It's a lot harder to lose a job than it is to gain a job. So the less work that you have to do to have it done, the better. So A.J. Finley has a big spring ahead. He flashed last year at times, both positive and negative. But if he can be more consistently positive, more consistent with the way he plays the game, it's going to be better. Now, remember with this defense, it is a explosive play defense. They want lost yardage plays and they want turnovers. Other than that, it's going to look a lot like a bend but don't break. But when you hear bend but don't break, you think what Arkansas did last year, playing 8-man, dropping back, and forcing you to slowly, methodically work your way down the field, which is a great strategy. It really is a great strategy. But that's not really what this defense does. I just said it kind of looks like that. So there's going to be stretches of the game where it seems like the other team is gaining 4 and 5 yards every time they run the ball or pass the ball. But the goal is to get them in an explosive play, and all of a sudden, if you make a big play after a bunch of 2nd and 5s over and over and over again, all of a sudden it's 2nd and 14, 2nd and 13, and all of a sudden you can work with that. If you have turnovers designed to gain possessions, that's the way this game is coached now, and that's the way this staff looks at it, is about gaining possessions for your offense. So they don't care if they win a game 55-49. They gave up 49 points. They won the game 55-49, probably because they stole a possession or two, so it's not 63-55. That's kind of the way they look at this. But everything they do is going to be competition, is going to be fun. And between those two things, they'll be able to establish a culture of everything. They also do the pro mindset as the other part of the culture. But it's a really interesting culture being built in the Manning Center currently. But that's what the defensive backs kind of look like. You got corners that's going to be pushed. MJ Garrett and Markevious Brown are going to push Keydron Smith and Dean Leonard for minutes. Jalen Jones will probably be back as well. I don't 100% know where he's going to fit. He might end up being a free safety. That's kind of the normal progression, is if a cornerback can't run, they move him back to the back. He's a fairly physical guy anyway. He could push A.J. Finley in that position. There's actually a position, getting pushed by everybody. Tylen Knight is going into the spring practice as the number one star. Otis Reese is going into spring practice as the number one strong safety. A.J. Finley has that free safety that we talked about earlier, and then the two corners are in position. So you see a little bit more depth being built on the back end of the defense. And I mean, that's terrific. You want that to perform at a high level, especially in modern football. I mean, that's the reason you see 5 defensive backs on the field, is because you need 5 defensive backs on the field. So that star position, the hybrid, linebacker, defensive back, and the buck position, defensive line, linebacker hybrid, are the two main cogs of this defense. Sam Williams has one locked down. If we can get the other one, I'm thinking maybe Dink Jackson, possibly Tysheem Johnson in the star position. But I have to see what it looks like. I want to see it with my own eyes. We can look at it a certain way, but until we can make certain assumptions. But until it actually happens, you see it on the field, you can't really make that assumption. Defensive line, though, is what's going to make or break this defense. The three studs coming in interior defensive linemen, Isaiah Iton, Jamon Gordon, and Tawan Malone. Those are very important for this team because that's going to make it better on the back end. It's going to force double teams in certain areas. It's going to change the way you're getting blocked. It's going to open up to where you're blitzing more effectively because of those double teams. There's a lot of stuff that can happen based off of that defensive line getting a lot better. And they recruited the players to do that. They really did. I mean, from ends down to the interior guys, like I said, Jamon Gordon and Isaiah Iton and Tawan Malone. Those are very important players for Ole Miss football, period. End of story. Like I said, it's going to make everything function easier. It's going to help Sam Williams. It's going to help the buck. It's going to help the star. It's going to make the linebackers and Chance Campbell and Jaquez Jones their lives a little bit easier. It's going to all of a sudden force mismatches to where you can align your personnel because you're forcing the other team to attack you a certain way because you have better players interior. If they're scared of the middle, remember, coaches are very risk-averse people. So if they are scared of the middle of the defense, like legitimately scared, there's a fear put in them, that changes the way they block everything. And all of a sudden, Sam Williams is open, the star is open, you can blitz from different positions, you're causing havoc in the backfield, you're causing turnovers, which is exactly what this defense wants. I don't think it can be understated how important those three signings are as long as they develop and perform. It's going, in the end, it's going to be up to them, but those players are huge, absolutely massive for everything. They will cover up so many weaknesses, We always talk about our backup linebackers being 3-4 guys, Lakeith Henry and Momo Sanogo. They just really are. They're not. They weren't asked in that system to run sideline to sideline. This time now they are, and there's edges and things being missed, and that's fine. That's fine. But if we're buttoned up in the interior of the defensive line, that allows them to line up differently to get to that edge layer, because you're not so focused on fitting an A gap or a B gap. All of a sudden, you can do a linebacker in the C gap, and you can focus up accordingly. So, Ole Miss's defense, and we actually started with defense. I'm surprised we started with defense, but we did. I wish Jake was here. He could break this down too. But those are the main places on the defense. And we started with the defense because they really have the most to gain from a solid spring practice. When we come back, we are going to start talking about the offense. And I love offensive football. It's one of my favorite things in the world. Whenever it clicks, it's just a beautiful thing to see. We're going to break down the quarterback position. We're going to break down the running back, break down the wide receivers, the offensive line, consistency. We're going to do all of that. So we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll talk about the offense. All right. Stick around.
You want to answer that, don't you? I bet it's just killing you seeing the soft glow just inches away. Someone wants to tell you something or ask you something. Oh, come on, answer it already! Just so we're clear, that wasn't my fault. Next time, ignore your inner voice. Don't text and drive. A message from Florida's trusted choice independent insurance agents.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis. I just want you to stick around a little longer. We're going to get back to the podcast right after these messages.
Tonight, nearly 40,000 veterans across the country are homeless. These men and women have pledged to serve our nation, and now we must serve them. Landlords across the country have helped make significant progress in reducing veteran homelessness by making housing available, but there is more that we can do to bring our veterans home. Visit www.va.gov/homeless to see how you can get involved. And if you are a veteran and you are experiencing homelessness, please call 877-4AID-VET. Thank you.
All right, welcome back to the POMcast. I am your host, Stephen Willis. We're having a good time today. We're having a really good time doing a little bit of spring preview with spring practice starting tomorrow. Before we continue, I want to say tonight, Coach O, it should be her last game to miss as the ladies basketball team plays Colorado at 7 o'clock Central. Win then, and Coach O comes back for the Final Four in the women's NIT. So congratulations to them, but you can just see them building and building and building and building in what they're doing, and it's kind of cool to see. It really is. So tomorrow, spring practice begins. I just really can't wait for the news. I mean, it should be closed. I doubt media will necessarily be allowed in. They'll be in on Saturdays, I believe. Whenever they play in the stadium, they're going to allow genuine fans and have open practices. It's the Pete Carroll aspect of Lane Kiffin. Basically, when it comes to stuff like this, whenever I was at Ole Miss way back when in the Stone Ages under Coach O, it was the Pete Carroll system and the way they did things at Ole Miss. So you were able to see the similarities between that and this and realize where he got it from. I mean, there's some stuff that he picked up from Saban and all of that, someone was saying, but there's certain things that are going to be Pete Carroll centric, and this is one of them. So fans should be allowed in for Saturday practices. Remember, spring practice isn't about the 11 on 11. It never has been about the 11 on 11. Spring practice is about the individual and getting a little bit better. Because if you can make that individual better whenever it comes time for the 11 on 11 in the fall, the team will have made a jump, period. That's the goal. That's what they want. So, Ole Miss, Saturdays, open to the fans. And also, Doug Nikhazy should be back this weekend. I expect him to pitch on Friday, but it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series against Alabama. So technically he will be the middle starter, and that's just to break up the right arms because Gunnar Hoagland and Derek Diamond throw pretty similarly. So it's a little curveball, so to speak, to the other team by throwing Nikhazy on Saturday. And it's another situation where having two aces are the way to go. Now, you're thinking about Vanderbilt, Kumar Rocker, and Jack Leiter having a fantastic year. Whenever they come to Oxford, they're going to face Gunnar and Doug and the first two games of that. And then on Sunday, there's just two flamethrowers potentially going to go out to the mound. It could be a nice pitching matchup. I hope the bats are working then. All right, but anyway, spring practice begins tomorrow. Let's move over to the offensive side of the ball and start where you should start on the offensive side of the ball with the quarterback. Basically, Matt Corral is the guy. Nobody is basically making up news about controversy. It's obvious he is the guy. It's up to him to develop. We can afford no disaster games like last year. He was great For 9 out of the 11 games of the season, he was not great the other 2. And by not great, that's being nice. But he realizes that. He was very hard on himself, and he's a very emotional kid, and he kind of wears it on his sleeve. So Lane Kiffin sticking with him and not pulling him out of the game is strictly for his mental health, playing the position, because he's not looking over his shoulder. He can just play, and he did a really good job. And Lane Kiffin, over the years, has done really well with quarterbacks. He knows how to handle people, especially people that age, which is kind of a major story, because not many people are like that. Some people like to stick a square peg in a round hole when it comes to managing a 20-year-old kid as opposed to a 40-year-old man. But Lane Kiffin can do that really well. So basically for spring practice for Matt Corral, what he needs to do is basically hone up on his drop 8. Knowing when to take a shot, knowing when to lay it off, that is very important. So the more he sees, the better he will be. And come Labor Day against Louisville, there should be some improvement made in that area. Now, at the running back position, Jerry Ely is injured. He's probably not going to play very much this spring practice. If you listen to our running back prospectus, we broke this down at a high level. The big springs are for Snoop Connor and Henry Parrish, and Kentrell Bullock, really. Each of them will be able to make jumps going into the fall and position themselves to be the guy after Jerry leaves. It's a very big spring for them. Who's going to be the alpha? Who's going to be the man? Who's going to do it right? That's what we're looking for from the running back room. They've done very well running the football. They ran the ball significantly more than they threw the ball. Sometimes, some games, they ran the ball 70% of the time. This is a running and big play offense. I mean, just like we told you on Boot Camp, the offense way back when. This is a running and big play offense. They will run the ball over and over, and then hit you with a double move or run some kind of play that's schemed up against you, because 10% of the plays, like 10 plays a game, are Lane Kiffin shot plays, essentially. They're schemed up. They're designed to beat a certain defense. They're designed to do whatever they need to do to make a big play. And you saw that last year, and that'll continue. But it's based off of that high tempo and lulling you to sleep. There's a relaxing that takes place when every 15-20 seconds there's a play. And most of them, they're inside zone or outside zone. And you just go through and you get repetitious. Then all of a sudden, there's a play where the wide receiver looks like he's going to go block you, does a double move, maybe runs a sluggo, maybe runs a seam, maybe just runs a 9 route and gets by you, and all of a sudden he's just wide open. You saw that against South Carolina. That's how they did that. They lulled them to sleep. South Carolina busted on a deep play, and there was just a wide open wide receiver. It reminds me a lot of a play real similar to that. If you watch Boot Camp, the offense, you can see from Navy, the Florida Atlantic Navy game in 2017. That was like the first game for Lane Kiffin, and there was like a 95-yard touchdown pass to Willie Wright. It was a double move. It was really, really similar to that. So you can see how the two offenses are fitting together. It started out kind of like a mad scientist look at the game, and him bringing that offense to Ole Miss and doing the same things are pretty cool. Now, people talk about the Baylor offense, and I will talk about the Baylor offense as well, but this is, at this point, the Lane Kiffin offense. It doesn't matter who the offensive coordinator is. It doesn't matter who's calling the shots. It's going to look fairly similar. It's going to be based off of tempo. It's going to be run-based, and it's going to be shot plays. Now, there's going to be different ways of doing certain things. There's going to be differences even between Kendall Briles and Jeff Lebby. But it's basically going to, in the middle there was Charlie Weiss Jr., who was not from that tree like they were. And the offense looked the same. It's now a philosophy with Lane Kiffin as the coach. It goes with pro mindset, fun, all of that stuff for this offense. And even against Kentucky, they have the ability to go into the bag of tricks. And by bag of tricks, they went under center and just ran a basic pick play on a 2-point conversion. I mean that's what we're looking at. It's so flexible, and that's probably the, you have the tempo, you have the spread aspect of it, you have the run aspect, you have the big plays, but the big thing about it is this offense is so flexible. You can do whatever you want to do. You can make it to where the defense is never right. There's passes tagged to run plays. There's runs tagged to pass plays. I mean, you can do whatever you want. It's like an option, like several times. There's a lot that rests kind of on the quarterback, but it's simplified in the way that, simple rules for what needs to be done. It's really cool. I mean, we talked for 10 minutes about the quarterback position. Let's move on to the running backs. We already talked about Henry Parrish Jr., Snoop Connor, and Kentrell Bullock having a massive spring, especially with Jerry and Ely potentially out due to injury. At least I'm assuming he's out due to injury because they're not going to risk him for spring practice. I have not heard that directly. Wide receiver, big spring for Jonathan Mingo. He was supposed to be the dude last year. He had a couple of games that he looked like the dude. Against Kentucky, he just looked like a monster. But some games he would just disappear. And I think that is the focus. The focus of this offense is going to be the inside guys, the slot and the tight end. They're going to work the middle of the field. They're going to use the outside guys to scheme to get them open. Other than double moves, the outside guys are a little bit different than the inside guys. I mean, you see guys like J.J. Henry, who probably will not be here for spring, but he has a big fall ahead of him. Jacour Pearson is basically an Elijah Moore clone. They went out and he's even from the same hometown. And John Rice Plumlee, who during baseball, he's actually contributing this year in baseball. So I don't look for him to come over to football that often. But when he does, hopefully he can have little moments to develop his craft because he looked quite good in the Outback Bowl. Offensive line, most everybody is back. I look for Eli Acker, who has a big spring ahead of him, over at the right tackle position. If he can perform and provide a little bit of what Royce Newman did last year, that's a big boost for the offensive line. Going into the tight ends, huge spring for Hudson Wolf. We're still waiting on the tight end transfer to come in. However that's going to look. It looks like he's going to fall behind in spring, so this is a huge spring for Hudson Wolf. This is also a big one for Chase Rogers, Louisiana Tech. He had a couple of big catches in the Outback Bowl as well. Casey Kelly injured himself in a post-Outback Bowl pre-working out snowboarding accident. That's bad luck for him. So that's kind of what the offense looks like. We're not overly worried about the offense, even though they're losing Royce Newman, Elijah Moore, and Kenny Yeboah. We'll see what the tight end position looks like. I think Hudson Wolf has the ability to look like the FAU tight end that won all those awards. I can't remember his name right off the top of my head. Brain surgery moment. I think he has the potential to do that. He still has to do it, but he has that potential. And you see these teams. Dontario Drummond at wide receiver, he has a big spring because he can be the alpha of that room. He can own that room. And he also has Brandon Buckhalter, a young guy. Who's Brandon Buckhalter going to look up to? Who's he going to make that stand with? Braylon Brown, who will be here in the fall. is worth noticing well. I think he could have been a 5-star if the camp season would have been normal. There's a lot of questions and a lot to watch in spring practice, including the ones that aren't there, the openings that could be when they get there. So I'm looking forward to this football season, especially this spring. So it starts tomorrow. Jake Evans got called away today. Hopefully he'll come and join us sometime soon. But until then, I'm Stephen Willis, and thank you very much for watching the POMcast. See you tomorrow.